Oh, man, what happened? I walked in the thing for your Tony?
Yes, sir.
Something wrong.
Good to see you.
I thought so.
Okay, for those of you I have not met yet, my name is Peter. I'm the current president of the Chamber of Commerce. And my wife Leah is also on the Chamber of Commerce. We put on this annual event called Hero Appreciation Month. And every time I mention this, people go, but we're not heroes. Yes, you are, to us. We reserve the right to use whatever word we want to refer to how much we appreciate you. The Hero Appreciation Months, we're now in our ninth year. And it's meant as a way for the community and the town to actually say thank you for what you do. And we honor law enforcement, firefighters, EMS, EMT, peace officers, veterans, non-veterans, people who served, armed forces, military, present and past. Basically first responders, the people who go out of their way to allow people like us to have a normal life. And we really, really, really appreciate that. So March is the month that we honor our armed forces. And we have 3 honorees today. And instead of me giving you a speech, I think it's better if you hear from our first honoree, Gary Pop.
Get to give a speech.
Hey.
Well, I was telling Larry, he asked me the other day if I was really going to do this, and I said yes. And so he told me one of the funny stories, but I'm trying to think of what's funny in wartime. But it's like catch-22, I guess you'd have to say, is what it, if you want to have any funniness, it would be the irony of some of the crazy things that you do in the midst of turmoil. One of the things I remember is a major who walked into the officers club and stripped down and did the naked dance. He actually went to a very dangerous place because the colonel walked in right after that, and he made him disappear. But that's about as funny as it gets. But you know what I really wanted to, just for a few minutes, talk about is, you know, most everyone, I think when they come back from war, they suffer some sort of a, you have to regroup, or I don't know what the word you would want to say. They call it PTSD. I don't think PTSD everyone has, but when you come back, you do a little bit of soul searching, you feel a little bit of pain. I remember when I came back in '73, I didn't know what was going on. I joined the California National Guard, and I was flying helicopters for them. So you can't admit you're going crazy. So or that was ground you, and you'd be done. So it was, you had to dance around flight physicals. You know, you had to pretend like you were happy. You had no marriage problems. You had no problem. You didn't kick your dog. You didn't do anything like that. But I was having these problems, and so my neighbor was a VA doctor, and so he said, well, let me check you in. I'll check you in for something else. I'll check you in for ulcers. So we can run tests on you. So they ran all these tests on me, and they said, we don't see anything wrong with you. Adios. So that's kind of how they dealt in those days with those issues. If it wasn't physical, you just need to go out and get yourself a beer and get happy. So anyway, a few years ago, I was going to start this with a short little letter I got, and then I'll open up to questions because I already don't have much to say. Marie, my daughter, she was at a swimming meet down in Exeter, and I was standing next to these people, and we started this conversation, and it led into her dad was a Vietnam veteran. And so I mentioned I was, and so when the meet was over, we walked back to our cars, and she just happened, with her husband, happened to be parked next to me. And I said, and she said, her little boy said, gee, mister, have you ever killed anybody? I said, no, actually, I was lucky I didn't have to. I was a medevac pilot, so I didn't have to shoot a gun. And then his wife looked, or his mother looked kind of down, you know, and I said, well, you know, were you involved with Vietnam in some way? She said, well, my dad was a Vietnam veteran. And she said, so I've experienced it. She looked pretty down then, you know. I thought, oh my God, what am I bringing up here? So we just avoided that. So I went home that night, and I thought, you know, I just felt compelled to write this letter. So I got up out of bed. It's about 10 o'clock at night, and this is the part. I didn't know who she was, except I knew that where she lived, this lady, and so I wrote her this letter. I knew her name was Kathy, that's all I knew about her. I said, "Dear Kathy, to begin with, I'm sorry I didn't get your name or your husband's last name, but I guess if God wants this to get to you, then he will. I was standing next to you and your husband at the swim meet in Woodlake and mentioned my son being in Afghanistan. I remember you said you could almost cry for him. Then later, when you and your husband were getting into your car, parked next to ours, and we had a few minutes to talk, you mentioned your Vietnam veteran, Dad, having died of causes related to his tour in Vietnam. I was a helicopter pilot in Vietnam, and my job was to pick up wounded GIs. We were called dust-off." Gotta put my glasses. I'm wondering why I'm reading this. Got my glasses. My roommate in flight school was in my company, 45th Med Company, our ambulance, and we served in Vietnam in 1967. He was killed in a very dangerous night medical evacuation mission in Vietnam, and he left behind a young wife and maybe a child since they were newly married. His name was Forrest Rains. As strange as this may sound, I just feel like writing you this. Maybe telling you what I think your dad would want to say to you, I would also be speaking to his young son or daughter too. And then this is what I am telling her what I think her dad would want to say to her. "Dear Kathy, I am so very proud of you and what you have done with your life. I wish I could have been there to see all of your wonderful accomplishments, but maybe with God taking me away from you early, gave you the courage to complete so many wonderful things. I want you to know that you were my favorite and my pride and joy, and please know that I would sacrifice my life again so you could live in freedom. My grandchildren are so lovely," that was a little boy asking, "just like you were and still are. Be sure to tell them once in a while about me. Only the good parts, please. I love you and want you to keep on doing loving things. I love you, Dad." Then I just said, "You don't need to call me back." Well, the next morning I woke up thinking I was going to have this return thing, and there was nothing in my email basket. I'm thinking, oh my God, maybe it's some kind of an emotional trauma, and I've just now relit this terrible thing, and she's just like calling the sheriff's bar right now, getting a restraining order on Harry Potter. That was my thought. Oh my God, I'm going to go to jail finally. Not that I don't deserve it for other things. So I really felt bad, and this was on, so what I did is I took this letter and I went to the town where I knew she lived because her daughter was in the swim meet, and the principal I was on my Harley, and the principal met me right there in the parking lot and said, "Can I help you?" I said, "Well, I'm looking for a lady who," she says, and the daughter had a little bit of an illness, and so the high school principal said, "I know who you're talking about." I said, "Would you give her this note?" And she said, "I will." Like I said, the next morning I wake up, nothing. I'm thinking, oh man, I made a big blunder, like I do a lot of. And then that night, nothing. I go to bed early, like 8 o'clock. So then the next morning I wake up, and this is the letter that she responded. And I wanted Leah to read this.
Oh. Okay, from Catherine Newfield. Subject, the letter. Dear Mr. Potter.
This is her email to return. Larry.
He's killing it, Got it, Larry?
Yeah.
Okay. It's off, okay. Dear Mr. Potter, I have received your letter and want you to know that I am beyond words to tell you how miraculous it is. My dad died March 12, 1987. In the 24 years since his death, I have struggled with his not being here. Many times I've wished that he would just show up one day and be pleased with the adult I have become. Today he showed up in a letter delivered by you. To say I've been crying is an understatement. I weep in my entire being with the knowledge that he is proud of me and loves me. Digesting the words in your letter will take time, but please know that they are life-changing for me. They are words I have been desperate to hear for so long. I'm overjoyed that my Heavenly Father has spoken to you and that you are a faithful son. You heard him, took the time to write it down, and drive to Danuba seeking a woman, a stranger. Today you are his prophet. Thank you for being so brave. With more appreciation than is possible to express, Catherine Newfield.
It's beautiful. Well, you know, the thing I really took from this is, you know, we as veterans suffer, but we don't realize that right next to us, our wife or our kids are suffering too. And I don't think we do it, you know, for any other reasons than we just don't. I think that's part of the disease, if you might say that. So anyway, that's what I wanted to share with you. And now, if there's any questions?
Gary, could we read that bio you wrote for us first? Could we do that before questions?
Okay.
It might help with the questions. Now, I think, yes, okay. Tom and Dodie Marshall put together a photo of Gary in uniform back in Vietnam days, and the bio that he sent us, and framed it up here. And they did something similar for Tony and Lisa. Okay, you want to read it?
You go for it.
Okay. Gary Potter graduated from Porterville High School in 1965. He joined the Army in '66 and was accepted to the Warrant Officer Aviation Program, where he graduated as a helicopter pilot in 1967. Uh-oh.
Larry, mine hasn't even rung all day.
I still see a light. It's not dead. It's going to wake up.
No, it's on vibrate.
Okay, all right. Let's see. Gary was accepted to the Warrant Officer Aviation Program, where he graduated as a helicopter pilot in 1967 at the age of 19. Gary was assigned to fly Dust Off, medical evacuation, and he proceeded to Vietnam with a newly formed company, 45th Med Company Air Ambulance, arriving mid-67 with a few hundred other personnel and 25 brand new H-model Huey helicopters. After 11 months in Vietnam, Gary was reassigned back to the U.S. and became an instructor pilot at Fort Walters, Texas. He was accepted to and in 1969 graduated from the Aviation Maintenance Officer Program at Fort Eustis, Virginia. Gary returned to Vietnam as an aviation maintenance officer for A Company 4th Division and eventually tried and return to his old dust-off unit. But the commanding officer would not release him. So he opted for an early release from the Army after 18 total months served in Vietnam. Mary, can you hear me back there? Okay. Upon discharge from the Army in 1970, he immediately joined the California Army National Guard and transferred to an aviation unit in Stockton, which flew primarily out of the Fresno Airport. Gary was sent for Chinook transition in Alabama and Oklahoma, and after graduation acquired about 100 flying hours in the CH-47 heavy lift helicopter. He was able to join a Fresno-based unit and became the personal pilot for an infantry commanding general. Then, due to President Jimmy Carter's slashing the military budget, Gary decided to leave the California National Guard.
And California.
Oh, we're glad you're back here.
Well, anyway, any questions? That's pretty much my bio.
Wow. Gary, you must have flown a
Yeah.
What
lot
was the
of...
scariest mission you flew over Vietnam?
Yeah, tell us about
Well, I guess the one that I mean, there's two that really strike me. I mean, you'll never forget. But this one, there was a wounded head. A GI had a head wound. It was down by Saigon. It was during Tet Offensive, and they were behind one dike. The GIs were, and the VC or whoever they were on another dike. And so this guy had a head wound, so we had to get in there right away. So I made my approach with going into the enemy, and then I turned my tail around to plop down what I was hoping to be next to the berm where the good guys were, but I didn't quite get close enough. But my medic hopped out with his, he has a cord, so we're talking, and he hops out, and my maintenance guy, or the crew chief, hops out. So I'm sitting there, of course, now my back is towards everything, but you don't want to see the one coming at you. But I got to say, and the pilots have armored seats, so unless they were really a good shot, they got me right here, they probably weren't going to kill me. But the medic and the crew chief were right out there in the midst of it all. And that crew chief had his M16 and he's firing back, and I'm on the intercom going, Kochek, is that guy almost out here? I just like Kochek needed to talk to me, right? And Kochek said, no, sir, he's not quite here yet. And so then I noticed in the chin bubble, the dirt kicking up, the bullets. And I think, oh shit, Kochek, got that guy yet? No, they're bringing him out, you know. One guy's bringing him out. The mechanic is so scared, he hops back in the helicopter. Kochek stands right there in the midst of it all. Then one bullet comes through my window on the left side, and another one goes through the right side. And then one goes through the IV and blows the solution, the IV solution, all over my co-pilot. He says, I'm hit. Oh, geez. So they have release. So the mechanic, then he goes over to the seat and releases the seat, pulls him back. See, it was just the IV solution. So Kochek sounds like, got him, sir, let's get out of here. The guy got shot again. I was just getting in the helicopter. So as we took off, fluttered out of there, the command and control ship overhead said, boy, dust off 1-5, it sure is a good thing you got out of there. They just shot a rocket at you. So that was,
Wow.
but you know, that they all start pretty calm, but then get kind of, you know, complex.
All in a day's work.
Pretty, my tale of doing dust off, it was an interesting occupation.
You said there was another one, right? There were a couple of.
Well, this one I was way up by the Cambodian border, at a mountain called Tain An, and it was like 2 in the morning. We were up there on a mission. I mean, we were standby in case somebody got shot. It's the 1st Infantry Division. They were up there, and you know, you just hope, because we did a lot of night flying. We were the only ones flying at night because everybody else, you know, didn't do much tactical stuff in the daytime. So I hear this. I'm sleeping in my tent. I hear this. All this noise going on. I think, oh God, no. And the guy runs into my tent. Dust off! I go, oh geez, and I look out there, and Tain An Mountain, or Nui Ba Din Mountain, is just like tracers going all the way up. There was a radio station up there, and they're trying to overtake it.
Yeah.
So of course, you know, somebody gets hurt. So I'm standing there looking at this, I'm going, oh my God, I've never even been on top of Tain An Mountain, you know, or Nui Ba Din, or Nui Dat, or I think it's Nui Dat. So these 1st Infantry guys, I just knew we were going to all die up there, and I told the mechanic, I said, or the crew chief, I said, you can just stay here. I said, we'll just essential crew go on this thing, you know. So one of the 1st Infantry guys, he says, hey, let me go. And they all started coming around me going, let me go. I said, man, you guys have to work this out. I can only take one of you. So one of these guys, he volunteers, and we get in the helicopter, and it's pitch dark, call artillery. They say, hey, everything that's going on up there is incoming, not outgoing. So because they have to call and shut the artillery off while you're flying up there so they don't blow you out of the mountain or off the. So I'm heading up to the top of this mountain. We start about 2,500 feet, and I have all the lights off, and I start my approach into the top of this mountain. You can barely see it because they have all their lights off. And all of a sudden, this guy on the radio goes, watch out, there's that tower right there. So I fire the aircraft and stop, and sure enough, there's that damn 30-foot radio antenna tower. So I hover around the tower and say, well, I've never been up there. Where's your pad? He says, it's on the other side of the hill, outside the perimeter. So I go over there, hover around, you know, this is all still all this stuff coming on, you know, and I hover around and I sit down in this PCP, which is the landing stuff, and here's the bad guys, here I am, and here's the compound. With all, and so the 1st Infantry guy, he gets out, he's having a ball, he's out shooting, you know, and everything, and somebody walks through the wire with an M60, and they stand in front of the helicopter, and they're going, brrr, brrr, brrr. And then he takes the M60 and he goes, throws it on the ground and runs back into the perimeter. I'm saying, what the? You know, is that guy out here yet? They're bringing him out now. And they put him in the helicopter, and then they decide to explode their claymores. And I'm on the outside of the perimeter, so I get all the claymore work, you know. So all those, it just riddles my helicopter with those little BBs that come off claymores. So we flutter off into the black abyss and take him to the hospital.
Wow.
That's
So here, in your bio, it said when you went back for the 2nd time, you kept trying to get back to Dust Off. After those 2 stories, why were you trying to get back?
You know, good question, because I just didn't like, you know, it's not I don't know what it is. It's not that I didn't like my job where I was at, and I don't know. You just feel like you want to do something while you're there. So
When you
I'm glad they didn't take me back.
You had a question?
Well, you're saving lives, you're attempting
Yeah,
to
right,
save
right.
lives more directly than maintaining the helicopter, even though that
And-
does too.
And at 19 and 20, we were, in that era, helicopters were pretty new. So we were all creating our own operational plans. So things like one time I was trying to pick up a wounded guy and they couldn't get the trees down enough and I didn't have a winch in this helicopter. So I told the guys just to put the tank in the middle of the area and I'd just land on top of the tank. So I just put one skid on top of the turret and they brought the wounded guy and put it in there because I couldn't get down in there. So you just do creative things eventually, things that never happened before. I think we did the first night hoist mission. That's,
Had to hoist somebody out.
yeah, at night. So you have to get right down in the trees with the lights on. And we could go on and on and on. Spend a year there. You don't want to spend a year here, do you? Any other questions? Okay.
Okay. Leah,
Wait, Gary, okay, hang on a second.
You get a bowl of soup now?
in a minute. We're gonna make you suffer a little bit.
Okay. There's a very sweet lady in town named Lauren Reich. Do you know
I
her?
don't. Probably maybe I cited. She's at the thingery. I know her.
Oh, probably. She's
Tuesday
getting
morning.
up in
Okay, I
years,
know her.
Tuesday morning.
but
Yeah,
she's
good
quite
friends.
a personality and an artist. And she made this. You see, I'll see if I can show you. This is a clay monoprint. She took clay and water and paint to make the mountains. It took a lot of work. It's a fabric, the sky and everything, and then did the silhouettes like the Heroes logo has the
Oh, I see that. now.
firefighter,
Yeah, I see.
law enforcement, and a Marine helmet, if you can recognize.
Looks just like me.
And then she did all of this, and then she became ill, and she couldn't attend. She wanted to come to the celebration, and she asked if I could save her one piece of cheesecake, and I have her piece of cheesecake back there. So isn't that beautiful?
Well, thank you
can
very
show
much.
people.
Like
Yeah.
I said before, anybody was here, I said I wish you folks were all here in 1968 when I came home. However, one of the things I did do, I did go to the musical Hair in my officers, and I didn't get beat up. That's probably the most dangerous thing I ever did in my whole life.
Okay, the county supervisors have a certificate for you, thanking you for your service.
Gee,
Yeah, during the Vietnam War.
gee, one free
There you
permit.
go.
Waiver.
And this chamber has one for you,
Okay, well, thank
recognition
you
of your
very much.
service. And I know you live here in town, but just in case you ever, either you want somebody to cook you breakfast fancy and relax, you can come to our B&B
Okay.
and we'll take care of you.
Take
Or if
advantage.
you just get a relative and you don't have room for them, or you really wish they
Oh.
would stay somewhere else, send them to us.
Sure.
You
Thank you very
can
much.
use a certificate for
All
that
right,
too.
thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Gary. Okay, and now we have Lisa and Tony Harris. And let's see, are we gonna have, who's gonna go first?
Stand
She
together.
decided it, Tony first. Okay, Tony. Tell us about yourself,
Okay,
Tony.
it's extremely hard to follow what he just said.
Oh,
You're way more of a public speaker than I am. But thank you very much for your service.
Oh, thank you also.
I'm glad I didn't meet you
I'm glad you
flying
didn't
a
either.
helicopter because I was air assault and I didn't like
Well, I was
those
gonna
guys.
say, yeah, those
Um,
hurt.
I don't really know what to say. I'm not good at speaking in front of people.
We're not people, we're locals.
Locals.
we're family and friends, right?
I did 2 tours to Iraq. Unfortunately, both times I was injured and was medevaced home. They always seem to get me right at the end of my deployment. So it's been 3 years since I've been out of the military. I don't know if you guys want to hear any of my stories, really, because
Yes, go ahead.
no, I don't know. You know, I was a 19 Delta Cavalry Scout. I kind of made a big joke about it. We were like the cops of Baghdad. We went out and looked for trouble, looked for bad guys, poked around. Most of the time, we found what we were looking for in a firefight or somebody being injured or somebody chasing us or us running out of ammo because it lasted for 2 days. I'm more better with questions.
Oh, I got a question.
Somebody asked me a question.
What do you think of Bergdahl? Bergdahl.
Say again, sir?
What's his name? Bergdahl or Bergdahl?
Oh.
Were you there when, well, that guy that just is
Deserted his
deserted?
post. Yeah, we were.
You know, I don't really. I had a few brain injuries, so I don't recall a lot of stuff like I should.
I'm probably mispronouncing
I have
his
4 brain injuries kind of on record, and I have really bad memory. I can recall some things. I can't recall what. I think I remember hearing about the guy who deserted his post.
He deserted his post.
I feel if you desert, the way I feel about it, you know, if you desert your post,
Yep.
you kind of get what's coming to you. I would never desert any of my guys because the way I see it is everybody relies on their guy right beside them. If you can't trust the guy beside you, then you can't trust him.
You traded him, Tony, for what, 4 or 5?
5.
5 terrorists. Traded him for 5 terrorists.
Do you think he could possibly have been so messed up, you know, in his head that, you
I
know,
imagine.
you know,
I don't know.
He knew what he was doing.
Everybody takes things differently. Every war, I'm sure, has similarities. Vietnam, Iraq, World War II, Afghanistan. Every war I assume you go to, everybody takes it as they can.
Tony, you went after IEDs too, didn't you?
I ran into a lot of IEDs.
Okay.
Um,
I thought you were
he didn't
searching.
want to, but he found a lot of them.
Okay. Accidentally or on purpose?
Most of them we ran into on purpose, but we didn't know they were there, so it was kind of accidentally on purpose.
When you were deployed there, I know you were a scout, but did you ever work with any of the local Iraqi military?
I did. I trained the Iraqi army. We lived in the same area. I mean, we were separated, but it was the same area.
What's your general impression of them?
Well, I didn't really like it much because a lot of times the guys that I trained, I ended up getting in a firefight with.
Oh, you ended up
We would train them how to hurt us.
Oh,
At the end of the day, that's kind of the way I felt about it. I was injured the first time. I broke my arm in an explode. I was at the little makeshift gym that we made to try to keep active. We were playing basketball, and a mortar came over and blew up the gym, and it killed several of my buddies. I was very lucky. It broke my arm, my wrist. I had a traumatic brain injury. They had to evac me to Germany. I only had 2 weeks to go till I was headed home. We were already doing what they called right seat, left seat rides, where the new unit was coming in, and we had to take the new unit out on our routes and show them what we were doing, the routes, tell them who are the people they can talk to get information and how to do it. And
what about the second time?
the second time, in between both deployments, I hit many IEDs. I think it's on the upper end of 50 or 60. But a lot of them were just, they just rocked the truck a little bit. The second time I was there for 10 months. My first deployment was 16 months. I was part of the surge. And the second time, I was there for about 10 months. We were supposed to be there for 14, I believe. And I was in a Humvee. There was 5 of us. We hit a deep bury IED. They killed 3 people. Me and my buddy survived. They broke my neck. Made my brain swell up. And they had to drill holes in the back of my head and stuff. And
You're here. You're here.
I'm alive.
Yes.
It was good times. I fought to stay in the military, but they, over a year in the Wounded Warrior Unit, they decided that over all the injuries. That that'd be better just giving me a early retirement.
Well,
And that's about it.
Tony, you had a brain injury the first time, but you still had to go back into combat.
I did. I told them what they wanted to hear because I didn't want to leave my buddies behind.
Oh,
So they let me go back. I came home because I had the broken bones, and then I was in the Wounded Warrior Unit for about 4 months, and then they sent me back to my unit, and I retrained, and I ended up PCS into Fort Bliss, Texas, and from Fort Stewart, Georgia, and then I deployed again with those guys in Fort Bliss.
I'm so glad you came back and your buddy came back.
Yes. Yeah.
And let me pause a second. Let me read your bio, or do you want to read it? I just want to make sure people get the
Now,
whole.
you met Lisa in the Wounded Warrior.
I
didn't
did.
you?
Yes,
The second.
Yeah. Lisa was in that too.
she was in it too, and we're going to hear that. All right, let's see what we've got here. Okay. Tony is from Granbury, Texas. Does anybody know where that is?
In Texas somewhere.
Thanks, Peter.
Big state, yeah. Okay, 40 miles south of Dallas, Fort Worth, and it's surrounded by a lot of ranches and dairies. He should have felt right at home out here, huh? Tony was a welder until in 2005, at about 23 years of age, he enlisted in the U.S. Army. Now, if I have something wrong, tell me. Okay, he trained at Fort Knox, going through basic and AIT, which includes combat training, in 4 months. Tony's MOS, or job description, was 19 Delta Cavalry Scout. In early 2007, he was deployed to Iraq, where his job was to track down the bad guys, the insurgents, in both Sadr City and Baghdad, and he had an M4 and a pistol. He was part of the surge, so he was there for 16 months. The first time he was wounded, he broke, I have many bones, and was sent to a Wounded Warrior unit to recover. As soon as he healed, he was sent back in, and now we know why, because you wanted to go back. He was deployed to Iraq in 2010 to 2011, this time. But he was wounded again, this time suffering a broken neck and multiple brain injuries. So, let's see, you were a staff sergeant,
Yes, ma'am.
and you were sent again to a Wounded Warrior unit, and that's where you met Lisa. As a result of Tony's injuries, he received the Purple Heart. He's now out of the military on 100% disability. And he does welding, fencing, and, according to Jack Nielsen, Tony's also the neighborhood handyman. All right. Go, Tony. Okay. Anybody else have any more questions for Tony? Oh, I have one, Tony.
Say again, Pineapple?
Are you proud that you serve your country?
I'm very proud that I served my country.
You do it again?
I would go back in a heartbeat.
There it is.
I would go back in a heartbeat.
My question was about, we were all hearing about, the Humvees not being protected. When the IEDs would come, you had no protection, and that people were trying to make protection, putting metal sheets in there, and you were there during that time period, right? When they were trying to armor the
Bottom
Humvees?
of,
My first
Bottom of
deployment,
them, that's it.
bottom of them, Tony.
Okay.
my first deployment, we had 11 14s. They were not heavily armored Humvees. We would do stuff ourselves, sandbags in areas that
Ah,
we felt that they could get us in. They weren't very, very good Humvees whatsoever. My second deployment, they kind of stepped it up a little bit. They were coming out with new vehicles. They came out with the 1151, which is a Humvee also, but it was up armored. It had the really, really thick bulletproof glass, and it had the protection underneath it. But as we would step it up, also they would step it up over there and build bigger bombs, better rockets.
armor-piercing rounds.
They knew exactly how to counteract what we were trying to counteract.
Okay. But you did a very good job, and now you're home,
I am.
and now you don't have to worry about that anymore. Good for you.
That's about the only.
Stay there a second.
can't tell any more stories because my daughter's crying and I don't want to make her cry.
Oh.
It's hard on the people to stay home too.
Come up. Yeah, it's hard to hear, hard to imagine,
Yep,
and
and
y'all
that's what
do
it
all that. I mean,
See if we told you all that.
that's what you do.
But this is why we do this.
Okay,
Pass it on to
all
you.
right, and Maureen Wright once again made you this beautiful little clay monoprint. Okay. So she took lots of paint and slips of clay and made basically fabric for the ground, the mountains, the snow, the sky. And she was doing it, at the end, she was just flat on her back. She couldn't even sit up anymore.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, with a major infection.
I would really love to meet.
Yeah.
Oh, you should meet
will.
her. She's a total character.
She is a cut up and an artist, a wonderful woman. But she finished it for you, and you can hang it up or stand it up, okay? And the Board of Supervisors, Tulare County, they love this program, and they always send you a
Just
certificate
so you wanted to hear from.
to the people we're thanking, and they thank you too for your service during the war.
If she
And the
decides.
chamber has a little
Underneath.
certificate, and I've got a bed and breakfast certificate, so.
Thank you.
When you're in the same town, it seems odd to offer you a certificate to stay, you know? But you can find a use for it, I'm
Sure
sure.
I will.
There you
When
go.
my parents come down, I'll send them over.
All
Oh,
right,
good.
send it to us.
We'll be
Good.
happy to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lisa.
Okay, Lisa's turn.
I joined in 2005. I was one of 3 females. In my company, my MLS was a truck driver. I was an 88 Mike. I was one of 3 females that went outside the wire in combat. I got there November, March 17th. I lost first of my 4 friends. They hit a V-bid, blew their Humvee up. We were building up their JSS. It was JSS Thrasher in honor of one of the first sergeants that died in battle. We were building a JSS for him, which is a joint security fob out there.
What is it, JSS again?
A joint security, what's the other S?
Joint Security.
Joint security.
Joint security. I can't recall right now.
Is it a site or a
It's-
vehicle or
No,
a
it's a,
building? Or?
Somewhere where you live.
yeah, it's
It's a-
somewhere where
It's like a it's a combat outpost.
it's where the
okay.
infantry guys live.
shelter?
You go out into the town and you
You set up
kick
your
a bunch of
perimeter
people out
and
of their own town and you take over
okay.
and live there.
I lost the first 5 of my friends. I ended up having to download my barriers that I was loading, that I had loaded to my truck. And I ended up having to pick up their Humvee, which was totally charred. There was, whatever remains were left were put in the Humvee. And ever since then, it was hard for me to go out there. I kind of had a hatred for everyone in Iraq. And after they died, it just kind of went downhill from there. A lot of my other friends died.
Were they truck drivers too?
They were infantry.
infantry.
They were infantry. Since my job, I was in a support battalion. I supported the whole battalion, which was pretty much infantry. So whatever they needed, I took out to them. I was constantly with them all the time. They were my brothers I never had. And so, ended up leaving December 2008, and I did not want to come home. I did not want to leave Iraq. I felt that my job was not finished in Iraq, and I wanted to stay. Unfortunately, we were told we had to come back. It was hard coming back. to Fort Bliss, it was hard. It was hard seeing my buddy's family there cheering us on, welcoming us back. That was hard. To this day, I still have a hard time with that. Got back in 2008. 2009, I ended up going to, I was in 212 Cav. 212 ended up leaving, going back to Fort Hood, and 41 AD ended up replacing 212 Cav. So I ended up going to 41 AD. I stayed with them until they deployed again, and then I was sent to the Wounded Warrior Unit where I had 2 shoulder surgeries. And after my second shoulder surgery, they said they couldn't fix my shoulder. It was too damaged, and they medically retired me out with 100%.
And you met Tony.
I met Tony in the Wounded Warrior program.
And when we were talking to you and Jack, he said you met Tony, and I said, well, did you like him or did you hate him or what did you think? And you said,
It was love at first sight
that's
when
awesome.
I saw him.
Lisa, you might tell these people you're in contact with Three Rivers. Lisa's a Three Rivers girl.
She went to school with my daughter.
Yes. All your daughters.
Oh,
Let the people know your contacts here.
I was raised here. I was not born here. I was born in Long Beach. I moved up here when I was about 8, which was in 1990. My family moved up here. My mom was raised up here along with my uncle. My uncle is Chuck Pincher. So I moved up here. I joined the service in 2005. Was in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri for my basic and AIT, and then from there I was sent to Fort Bliss. Fort Bliss was just newly established when I got there. They were the sisterhood of Fort Hood. So it was a whole new base and Army base. So I ended up going to new Army base, which was just newly established, and I stayed in Fort Bliss until I retired in May of 2011.
it's very cool.
Tell the people what, both you and Tony, you mentioned AIT. A lot of these people don't know what AIT stands for.
AIT is Advanced Individual Training. You have your basic, where you're with a whole bunch of different soldiers that have different jobs than you. You go through basic for, mine was, I think 9 weeks. I think it was 9 weeks. And then after you graduate basic, you go to your individual training, which mine was, I was a truck driver. So I ended up going to AIT for truck driving. A lot of the soldiers I went to basic with were in medical, so they ended up going to Fort Sam Houston. Some were chemical engineers, so they stayed at Fort Leonard Wood. But AIT is an individual training where you go to learn your job in the Army.
I didn't have AIT.
No.
Which one you did?
I was 4 months of straight basic training.
Okay.
My AIT was, oh, you guys are done with basic training at about face, and it was like, okay, welcome to AIT now.
Oh,
Go upstairs.
Yeah, different MOSs have basic and AIT, and some are OSET where you're pretty much in basic and AIT. all at
OSET's
once.
one-stop unit training.
Yeah.
yeah, all these abbreviations. We
Yeah.
don't know. You have to tell us.
And you were a staff sergeant also?
I retired as a sergeant.
Which, 3,
3 stripes.
3, E5.
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 E5. Okay.
Tony was E6.
Now you're out of the military on 100% disability too, right? And what are you doing at the moment?
Going to school for culinary to be a pastry chef.
That is so awesome.
She's gonna make sweets for us.
Yes.
Yeah, we could use that here.
And because she studies how to make sweets all day long, she wasn't interested in eating the sweets over here tonight. She goes, no. That's what it's like when you're doing it all day, huh?
Yeah, I'm good. Right now I'm in candy making, so I'm dealing with chocolate. So if I never see chocolate for the rest of my life, I will be very, very happy. Very happy.
Oh. And you said you wanted to someday open up your own bakery.
Yeah,
That would be
one
so
day
cool.
open up my own bakery.
We3 is available.
Yeah, we
Yes,
don't have
it
a
is.
bakery at the moment.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Lisa?
I actually have just one general question. There's been a lot of debate about women in combat. And I know you weren't officially in combat, but in
I was
reality
as
you
close
were.
to combat as I could get.
Right, exactly. Do you have an opinion about women in combat?
Me personally, I don't think women should be in combat. My first 3 months, I went out with the infantry guys. I got to kick down doors and do what they did for 3 months, and it was not a piece of cake. It was not a walk in the park, and I was in shape, and I still had a hard time keeping up with them. So, no, I don't think women should be in combat. They see Tony and a lot of the guys that I work with saw more stuff than I saw, and as a female, I don't think that women can handle what they saw.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
I feel that women can do just as much as men in a combat situation. What I feel that causes a problem with men and women together in combat is the tension between two people being deployed for so long, missing their families. I saw it firsthand. I was never around women in the military, never, until I went to the Wounded Warrior Unit. But I saw the problems that it caused with women and men. Like, we had co-ed showers on certain bases, and there was just a lot of drama going on, and just, I can't even say the words in front of the public.
Yeah.
That's the only reason I feel that they should keep them kind of separate. They could go to work together, but the way we were living and what was going on, it caused more problems having the opposite sex, being men or women. It was a lot of problems with, a lot of people didn't know how to handle.
When you came back, did you feel that you had the right and enough support when you came back? Was it supportive for you? And what could spouses or people do to help be more supportive?
I had a lot of support from my family. At that time, I didn't tell my family everything. I told them pretty much that I was okay.
That's the LSU cheer.
That everything
I'm
was
sorry.
okay with me. And I kind of think that my parents didn't really want to know what I had done or what I had seen. I had all the support that I needed. I didn't want to talk about it, pretty much. And to this day, I have support from Tony and my dad and stuff, but I don't like to talk about what I did, what I saw, or anything like that.
Is there anything that spouses or friends could do that would help more?
Just give us time. When we're ready to talk, we'll talk about it. That's pretty much all. Just be there for your spouse, and the same with friends, but when we're ready to talk about it, we'll talk about it.
Thank you for your honesty.
Just gonna say this is the most I've heard out of either one of them about the subject.
Peter,
They don't talk.
don't forget at the end to do.
Don't
Yeah. Well, I
You don't
can,
want to hear my stories, Mackenzie, believe me.
tell their stories.
Most people have been in
maybe
contact,
much
don't
later.
talk about it.
but I get it. Just in junior high, I remember we were talking about the Equal Rights Amendment and women being drafted like guys. Just the very thought of it, I started having nightmares and trying to imagine what it would be like if I was in the middle of battle. And I remember in school they showed us a film, and it was an ambush, and it was horrible. And after they showed us that film, I had that dream every night. I couldn't get rid of it. And what I was thinking was, how do you survive something like that and not go crazy? Because I
You
could
don't,
just,
Leo.
you know,
You don't.
I was told, oh, they train you. And I thought, oh yeah, they train you, but when you see people you care about, being destroyed right there in front of your eyes, how do you handle it? I figured I would just go nuts. And, you know,
There's no amount of training that they could give us.
yeah, and I
To
hadn't,
deal
I
with
hadn't
what we
done
had to deal
anything, I
with.
was just imagining what it would be like. And then somebody told me, get a dog. And it actually worked.
I got a husband instead, but I think it works out.
I
I
still have
got
nightmares.
a big dog came over and adopted us. He'd run away and he was so sweet, a big lab, an oversized, gorgeous, friendly lab. And I quit having the nightmares. It was amazing how it worked, but what I'm telling you, I really respect you guys and feel for you guys, because I wasn't even there. All I'm doing is trying to think.
I remember the question or what Mr. Potter had said when you said somebody had asked you, oh, how many people have you killed and this, that, and the other. I got that question a lot from our new guys that would come
Always.
in, and they were just, oh, I joined the army, I wanted to kill somebody, I wanted to do this, and I was like, okay, well, you know, here's your opportunity. But even when somebody's trying to hurt, like several times, I got shot in the back. Well, fortunately, I had my vest on and it just cracked my plate and a couple of my ribs. But and then unfortunately, I had to. Yes.
Yeah.
Defend yourself.
Yes.
And I tell all of these new guys, the privates or whatever rank they were when they came in, they were new to the military, and they were just had this mentality that they wanted to kill somebody. And I told them, you know what? Even when they're trying to hurt you, it's still the worst thing you will ever do. I can picture every face, and there's several. I don't want to get into numbers, but
Yeah.
it's just when people ask me that, I just want to walk away from them. It's not something I think somebody
Right.
should be able to ask somebody, because they're basing their questions off of
Ignorance.
army movies and
Yeah.
the movie Predator and big machine guns and motorcycles and four-wheelers and
Total
just-
ignorance, yes. Yeah. Well, it helps us, helps educate us when you talk, as much as you can, Don't hurt yourself. But whatever you can tell us puts an honest face on what it's really like. And that helps us.
And to some degree, part of the reason we do this is, yes, we want to thank you for everything you've done and to show our appreciation for, putting yourselves on the line for this. But along with you, there's a support group that allowed you to do this. Your families, your friends,
Your spouses.
kids who
your-
deal with it just like you do every day. And it takes that whole unit to allow you to do what you do. And it's our way of thanking the whole family and your support group. And to some degree, we want to be that support group to help you also. So
Yeah.
remember, you have us here. That's one of the wonderful things about a small town like Three Rivers. Everybody is pretty much like a family. And you get the annoying uncle and all that. But yes,
He's
we are
very annoying. I have to agree with that. Chuck Pincher is a very annoying guy. He's a good guy though.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
Okay. And here's what Lauren made for you, Lisa. Okay. And once again, she laid that out with her paint and her clay and water, and she said it becomes like pieces of fabric. So you have the sky, the snow, the mountains, the valley, and then the silhouettes. And like I said, you can stand it up or hang it up.
It's pretty.
Every year it's different. It's a different artist volunteering their time every year. Sometimes it's like a ceramic plate that somebody painted the mountains on. One year it was a gourd. I don't know if you remember that. That was hard work burning the logo into the gourd, but it was gorgeous. Dave King is here, and he made the very first year that we did this, he made the metal ones, remember?
That was fun.
Those are beautiful. And Bill Herman still has his.
It's right by his front door.
Yeah, he's a
Hold the
World
door
War
open.
II vet, and he's now living in Visalia, in one of the retirement homes. But he put his hero's piece of art right outside his front door. He's that proud of it. Yeah, and who was the other one we recently saw?
Oh, the plate.
No, it was somebody's celebration of life
Yeah, it was
at St.
Walter.
Anthony's.
Walter Aguilar.
Oh my God, yes. Do you remember Walter Aguilar? Walter.
He flew B-25s in China.
Can you hear him out there? He said Walter flew B-25s in China. It was a long time ago. And when we had his celebration of life at St. Anthony's, his piece of art from his hero's celebration was right there on display with all his pictures and his mementos. It's beautiful to see. And the county supervisors, every year they ask us, are we doing it again? And we go, yes. And then they ask who has been nominated to be honored. And then they do certificates for you, for your service during the Iraq War, and the chamber certificate. And you get another one of these, a free night stay.
The family can stay twice.
Yes.
Can we get all three of you
Come on.
together, please?
Yeah. We almost forget this every time.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay. I'm a terrible photographer, so don't blame me for what it looks like. This is just a test. Okay, now 1, 2.
Smile.
Oh, look at that. They all smile.
Peter, should we
Thank
have one with one of the plaques? Is there any? Yes.
Just took a picture of my hand.
Let's pick up one of them. Lisa, you're in the middle there. Hold yours. Because some people won't get to see this.
Yeah, watch
One
the
more
light
time.
better.
1, 2. Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Came out here and said hello and stopped.
Mazda, please.
When I got injured, I remember